Welcome back, Rico Money Bags, a channel helping you invest in yourself so we can invest in the future. Make sure you guys smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, make sure the bell notification stays lit. We're going to have a special guest up, which is super important. We get, on these special Wednesdays when we get to do this, we get a little bit of, the stuff that you need to hear. And it's a perfect time because we're seeing the markets kind of turn up. So if you guys can like and repost this, we're going to have Blunt House up here. We're going to be talking about, this kind of price action that we're having. We noticed a little pullback when things were feeling really good, but we're going to see exactly where we get in and where we fit in. So I do want you guys to max engage. And if you guys are tapping in on YouTube, X, or wherever you guys might be, just like and comment on all this stuff, right? We're live on X, on the XPX account, which, fam, the other day we got some really good reposts by some really big projects. I think people missed the opportunity. Like, if you're on YouTube, fine, like come over here and engage with this. If you're on the Rico Moneybags, that's fine, cool, but engage with these, because sometimes you never know which one's going to be the one that gets reposted by a major group and you're missing out on all that cross-pollination. All it takes is a couple minutes to come over here, like this, repost this, and max engage. And sometimes, like the other day, we had a repost on the XPX account, massive account, post us out. We got a lot of exposure to the Clash community, so you never want to sleep on which one is going to be that post that's getting all that cross-pollination. I also want you guys to come over here and give Blunt a follow. This is who we're going to be having up in just a bit as we fill up the stage, as we fill up the whole stream and get everybody tapped in with us. I do appreciate everybody pulling up. Take your sips of your coffee, like, repost this stuff. This is where the alpha comes, and we're going to be having them coming up talking about some of these breakdowns that we have, especially when it comes to BTC and the markets that we pay attention to quite a bit. Now, things have been feeling a lot better, right? And we know that every time we peak over this $3 trillion market cap, we do feel like a little bit of this just excitement. The euphoria comes back. And then when you look at the charts, you kind of see that same thing being reflected in many different ways. And I don't want you guys to miss out on this. And we're going to talk about kind of that excitement. I mean, I'm kind of excited. Now, how long is this excitement going to last? That's exactly what we're going to figure out. But when you look across the board, we have some pretty positive price action across the week. Bitcoin 4.3%, you got Ethereum 6%, you got XRP up 20% on the week. We're going to show you guys how you guys possibly, right? It's not financial advice, get the cliche out the way, but possibly could have found these entries if you guys are really tapped in with us, right? This is kind of where it really counts, right? Because you have those breakdowns, then you have that chop forever and it's just boring. Then you have the holidays, you're busy with the family, and then boom, now the markets are pumping, you're missing out. Or did you have an actual chance to catch on some of this stuff, right? So XRP up 20.3, 20% up on the week, 20.5% up on the week. We got BNB up 4% of the week, was peaking over that $900 mark, looking really good. Solana, which is one that we've been catching the ebb and flow of this one, and one that I want to talk about specifically because it's crazy because I obviously XPX is on the BNB chain, but Solana's ebb and flow, I really, really pay attention to that one. I am so, you could say almost on an intimate level with Solana on the ebb and flow, on the different time frames. Like if I saw that chart somewhere else, I would know instantly that it was a Solana chart, right? So we're going to be talking about Solana as well. All your favorite blue chips. I need you guys to get in here. Bring your favorite plays, bring your favorite communities, right? This is what's going to help your Mitsuki, your Kulo plays, or your whatever play it might be that you're bullish on, because some of this positive price action is why you're seeing that push come to life on your Solana plays, why you're seeing that push come to life on your BNB plays, on your ETH plays, right? Because the overall market is seeing some positive price action. Now, we've been talking about this for a while, that if there was a section, an area where we wanted this thing to pump up, where things needed to turn around, that this is where it needed to be. This is where it needed to happen, right? And we know that, hey, after these long, you have a break underneath the 50, you got all this breakdown, then this choppy stuff getting everybody bored and exhausted, all that good stuff. We finally see this right here, what we've been waiting for. And that's why when people were saying this was the floor, I was not convinced. When they said this was the floor, I was not convinced. Even when they were saying this is the floor, it was looking good. This one was looking nice because we were seeing some higher lows and kind of in that direction that we were going. But I was really not convinced because we were still so far away from that 50 moving average or the 200 moving average when we turn them on, that really ignites that excitement, right? And I'm not just the one just saying that just to say, when you see right here, this is what started to change. This is that area of, finally on the daily chart, you could have waited. Look, this is that first time we're actually breaking above it and we're seeing that chase. And this is where I was telling everybody, if this was the area where it needed to happen, boom, if it did, it would look really good. And filling this gap to 100K BTC is where things get really exciting. Now we're going to turn on the Blunt House indicator, and then we're going to bring them up because we're already almost at triple digits when it comes to the live stream. So I really do appreciate you guys reposting this. Get your communities in here, have them make some comments in the chat, take advantage of all the viewership. It's basically free marketing, fam. We already hit 103 viewers on the live stream. We're not even 5 minutes. We're 5 minutes and 30 seconds in. Okay, so get everybody in here. I'm going to turn on this Blunt House indicator to show you guys why it's important to use it, and we get this kind of idea of where we could be headed to, where we could be heading to, and we can see this, lower value range right at 100K, filling this gap. We wouldn't be too shocked if we saw maybe a case, a first mouse, second mouse, and then getting rejected. Maybe it comes back down, but this is why we're seeing this positive price action. But we still got some work to do. We still see the 100, we still see the 200, and that's why some people are still on the fence. And when we zoom out on the weekly chart, we can see that we still definitely have some work to do. That, even when it comes to the weekly chart, that we're still working off of a sell signal. And yes, we're holding on to that 100 moving average right here, as you see the purple line right here, holding on to the 100, holding on to the 100, holding on to the 100. We're starting to turn this thing around. The big question is this just some green candles and still a confirmed downtrend on the weekly chart where, we got this marked up for this 200 moving average. It's right here, this upper value range at that 73, 76K BTC. We're not flooding your bags. We're not trying to suck the excitement out the room. I think that we're having some pretty good price action. It's when we zoom out that I want to see a little bit of this buy signal come on, breaking over these moving averages. And we know a lot of times the first attempts fail, right? So we're being cautious with all this type of market condition, right? And a lot of times we see this first mouse gets to squeeze, second mouse gets to cheese, and we could definitely ride this 200 moving average and bump into this 73K on BTC. Now we don't have to do that. This thing can turn bullish, and we're gonna bring Blunt up in just a second where what it would look like for this thing to turn bullish for everybody. And maybe that's not what we got. Maybe we don't have enough for this thing to turn bullish for the whole space, and we are going to get it squeezed down to this 200 moving average. Or maybe this, daily candle right here is confirmed enough that we could fill this gap, right? Go into this gap, come to this 100, come to this 100K BTC, get above the 100, get above the 200, somehow get up here trading above this, and all our dreams come true. And I'm gonna put Blunt on the spot and see if our dreams are coming true, or do we got some nightmares coming? Is it, is a 4-year cycle over? Does that even matter? So let me go ahead and clean this up. Let him get a screen ready so he can share his screen as well. I do appreciate you guys reposting the stream. Like I said, it's super important for all you guys to max engage on X and give this man a follow. We're going to bring him up. This is the indicator that we've been using, referencing, and it's very powerful, actually. Very, very powerful. You can see where you usually would guess why is the price, being held up somewhere, what's actually going on. When you look at the weekly, you're like, why is it, what's actually going on? If you just, and then you can see, boom, 100, 100, 100 moving average nonstop. And you wouldn't be too shocked if we came to the 200. We break one level, find the next. If we broke this level, yeah, we'll probably find the next. All right. So let me go ahead and bring up Blunt House TA right now. Welcome up, Blunt House. It is truly a pleasure to have you up here, man. Starting the new year. Hopefully you started off really good for yourself, but this is the first time we have you on for 2026, man. So welcome back to the stream. And like I said, it's always a pleasure to have you up, brother.
Well, thanks very much. Happy New Year to you guys, and I'm glad to be here. And we should try and make this a regular thing this year. I love doing this, so I'm game if you guys are.
Absolutely, man. I know the community is. I was talking to, Delatoshi earlier, and we were talking about the indicator. I was talking to a couple of people, and it's like, it's these type of moments in the space after you have like a massive breakdown, and then you've already got used to the this breakdown, and then you got the chop, and you almost just accepted that things are going to not be that happy, and then out of nowhere, now things are exciting again, and then you got everybody calling you. I'm sure you're getting messages like, are the races back on? Because even the stocks are pumping up a little bit. I saw QBTS going up, so a lot of people are like, calling all their crypto or stock traders and are like, hey, is it back yet? And I guess that's going to be the big question today, Blunt. Are the races back on, or is this some more downtrend action going on?
I think it's going to depend on the sector and the vertical that you're looking at, but I think taking the chart that you've got up there, the Bitcoin chart, which we'll look at, there's there's this period of adjustment that I think people go through when you've had, this parabolic uptrend with very little retracement, and then all of a sudden the floor falls out from under you. And then just when it looks like price is starting to recover, all of a sudden you're realizing, wow, this isn't going to be as easy as it was going up before. And a little bit of a mindset change is going to take place. And I think what you're seeing right now is kind of an example of that. I'll show you on one of my charts. Find one. Here we go. Sure. So this is I'll go to the daily. This is our daily Bitcoin chart. And basically all that's on this chart is our volume profile on the right. And then we're running our script with just the T-line, 5 EMA, and then everything else is working in the background. We have no other averages. And what the chart provides you with an opportunity to do is add context to what you're looking at, right? Like even if we just were to take off all of this, you start feeling a little bit naked, right? You realize that some guidance is helpful, right? And that's when you can start to overlay whatever methodology you're using, again, to try and provide context on this chart. Now, one of the things that you can do, the most basic things that you're going to do is look for support and resistance levels, right? Well, just running the volume profile alone shows you that, hey, the upper value range is providing some resistance to the upside. And you can see that down here, the lower value range, you've thus broken that, right? But it does provide you with some sort of context of where price has been, because it'll go there again. But let's just, for example, add a 20 onto the chart. And when we analyze a chart, or when I analyze a chart, I pay a lot of attention to price action around major moving averages. And, for example, you can see here, this is the 20-day moving average. Price gets north of it, and this is a big parabolic run, but stayed well north of the 20-day moving average, but eventually came back to touch it and break down a little bit, only to break it again and move higher, right? So price action at a major moving average for me is important because it's a representation of time and price where traders have been before. If we add the 50, which is for me always ice blue because I consider it the ice. If you break through the ice, not so good. But if you can get support from the ice, usually works in your favor, right? And price gravitates from one level to the next. It's a simple process of breaking one level and finding the next level. And when you're trading above these three in particular, the 20, the 50, and the 200, when you're trading above all of that, at some point in time, you have to acknowledge that you will come back and test them. And those can be simple trades that you might be in for a day or two or a week, longer if you're lucky. But when you are trading above all of those and you go through that process of breaking one level and then finding the next, that can actually turn into some sort of a trend move. And that's really what's happened here, right? You broke everything. And the 200-day moving average is your most basic bull bear indicator. So price will always be looking for places that it's been before. So in our streams that we do a couple times a week for quite some time, going back to here, we were saying, please be careful longing into resistance into resistance. So, you've had the benefit of a long time of price going up and catching support no matter what, and off you go. Well, now we're not in Kansas anymore, right? It's a little different. And this is what happens longing into resistance. There's the 500-day moving average. Price can't break it, right? And we were telling people in our stream, you have to be careful, because as soon as you can see the effort to break through the 500, that's the pink level. But as soon as you break down below the 20-day MA, you're going to kind of go through the same process with that. right? You've broken one level, you're finding the next. Now that's your obvious resistance. Knowing full well that what's above you? The 50, right? You have to break through the 50. Lo and behold, you do. And what do you hit your head on yet again? The 500-day moving average, which has tucked itself in along that lower volume profile, or lower value range on the volume profile. So this continues to test and fail. And where will price come back to? Most likely the 50 and the 20-day, which have twisted together. So that will be a significant draw for price. Will they bounce? Well, I don't know. It's a first touch. You would hope that it would get a little bit of support. And if we're lucky, it would bounce higher. And then in that case, you kind of look to take out the previous wave's high, which would break you through this 500 MA that you've tested and failed several times. Because the ultimate goal is to get into this volume gap to the right. Because if you do, then price has very little to keep it from moving higher. It can shoot up through that gap quite quickly. That's what you're hoping for if you're long, but that's not a trade until you can meaningfully start trading and break through the 500 MA. And if you're not running this long-term average, you're not seeing this. You're literally not seeing these repeated tests and fails. And for me, I would rather see it. And partially because everything is fractal. So although this is a daily chart and I'm running that long-term average, this is 1,000 days. On a weekly chart, yeah, it's 20 days, but it's 20 times that weekly amount, right? So these are stronger over time because everything is fractal. And we talk about trend, right? Like having the ability to read price is great. Have to have it, absolute core necessity. But I also believe that having the ability to understand trend is equally as important and more powerful when you combine the two. Because what you have here on a weekly chart is at no time did any of this price action, even this current weekly candle, give me a reason to buy this chart or this time frame. We talk about this all the time. Be very careful. Impulse down and sideways, do not interpret that as bullish. This is bearish when this happens to me. And this is looking like a failed breakout where you could come down and take out the previous wave's lows. This hasn't converted into a trend change on the weekly chart. On the daily chart, what is it? Repeated resistance. Repeated resistance. That's what this is. So on the weekly chart, that level you're seeing on the daily, that's this level here. It just can't break through it, right? Price can't move above the T line. All of this divergence is still in place and it's enhanced. So it looks like there's momentum to it. And what do we talk about when you see these green candles? There's always the temptation to buy those green candles, isn't there? Right? Hey, we've based out for a week now or a month or whatever this is, a month and a half. That candle looks like the one I'm going to cheat the entry. We've all done this, right? That's why I wrote the script. So here's our next candle. Not so promising anymore. At this point, if you did buy that candle, you're starting to go, oh no, this might be short-lived, right? Because you never got a confirmation of a breakout. The market never communicated to us that it was ready to turn bullish. And I believe this is a language, and all of this is just a form of communication, right? Our technicals are based on math. Math is a language, so this is some sort of a language. And it's our job, in order to monetize the chart properly, to understand what the market and the chart is telling us. This is still a downtrend. These are just green candles in what is still a downtrend. And what's the resistance to the upside? If it does break through, right? You have three choices: up, down, and sideways. You're going to challenge this level up here. It makes perfect sense. There's the 50, there's the 20. You can see it's kind of cutting through all of this price to the left. Completely reasonable. If it fails, if this is a failed breakout and you do take out these previous waves lows, that puts you in play of actually breaking that upper value range and then falling into this gap. And if you follow the streams, we've identified this price in here, this zone, I guess, for lack of a better word, as a bench that price may attempt to sit on if it loses support. And if I add one more average, you'll see what I'm talking about. There we go. There's your 100. So this is the first touch of the 100 MA. So we're getting the pause that we would at least expect, but we're not getting the bounce, are we? So again, I think this might roll over, break this level, and then fall into the gap. And then you're looking for the 200-day to break into this zone, right? Time and price will come together. And, there we are, 58 to 65, something like that. But it's not unreasonable for price to come back to the 200-day moving average on any asset on a weekly time frame. It just feels so painful because you've fanned out all of these ranges that you will come back and technically hit because of the exponential price movement higher. That's what causes that to happen. And the shorter ones go first, right? And then followed by the ones with longer time. So I think there's more downside for Bitcoin. I don't think we're out of the woods yet. We're kind of hoping that it would bounce in and around this range. That's obviously still possible, but the chart is suggesting that may not happen.
Yeah, I think Bitcoin over, getting over 95K, going towards that, 100K BTC on the daily chart and kind of getting at least back above that lower value range is something that could, help excite the market overall. But, that's exactly where you see the 100. And I've been telling everybody, it's like, it could turn into a game of whack-a-mole very easily. It could be a trade, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, you do have to be conscious that, on this chase to this 100K BTC, the lower value range, if we do fill the gap, you do have the 100 above you, you do have the 200 above you. Yep. And these things could definitely be a game of whack-a-mole where there's a couple taps right there, and maybe we break through. Crypto's very wild. October 10th was wild. Nobody saw that really coming out of nowhere unless you had some Blumhouse indicators, and depending what asset you were trading, there was some that told you a couple days advance, or was some that just told you the day that it happened, right? Because I was bored one day, I was going over all of them, but nonetheless, this is where we got to be headed towards, that 100K BTC. But we still got some, some possible whack-a-mole above. But if we had an opposite of what happened October 10th, which would take a lot of money to come into the market, right? It's like, then all our dreams came true, right? And we're above 100K BTC, things feel a lot better. But I still think that there's a little bit more consolidation. I agree with you. Like, I'm very conscious of, just getting automatically, boom, the races are back on when, we're still trading in light volume, lower, underneath the lower value range. And I need a little bit more to be completely convinced that, the races are back on completely. So,
yeah, this white line is essentially 100,000.
Yeah.
Cutting through this will be a level that price will want to return to because, it's kind of structural. If I go back, you'll see I can connect, see?
Yeah.
All through here. So it'll want to go back there. But this is the 4-hour, and you can see I love the 4-hour chart for Bitcoin. But you can see all of these major moving averages up here on the 4-hour twisting together. So when that happens, just be aware that whatever comes out of that is usually significant, whether it be up or down, and then the job just becomes which one. As it broke to the downside, it just became a massive process of breaking one level and finding the next level down, and then testing and failing as resistance. And when you kind of scale out like this, you can really kind of see how relevant the levels become, right? It just is a game of levels and tests and fails and tests and fails. The concerning thing is that on this 4-hour chart is that if you do break the 50, right? This was a big move up and a super clean signal, by the way. You could be finishing brunch at 11 a.m. and that signal would flash up and you'd hit the buy button and, you won't have any problem digesting your eggs, right? Like, that's a super nice trade.
Yep.
Off this time frame. But when it wants to get when it looks toppy and flat and you start to see a little bit of well, this was not a little bit, but you'll see closes below the T line. 1 is a little bit of an eyebrow raiser. 2 or 3 is even more of that. And then it breaks down. What does it do? It breaks one level and it finds the next level, right? This isn't, it's not pin the tail on the donkey, but sometimes it will feel like it is. But if you look at this 4-hour chart and then think of what our hourly looked like, where price kind of sunk and then went sideways because it doesn't get any sort of a snapback. And when they do, like look on these 4-hour candles, is all they do is this one tested the T line, 5 EMA, this one's gap down. Like there's a whole lot of air here. So there's momentum. You could hit the 50, take a little bit of a pause, and then break down, find this lower level. But you can't, and if we can kind of reinforce one thing, if you're long here, and this is what you're looking at the script and you're long, for some reason you shouldn't be, but if you were, you can't fix it, right? Like there's no, you cannot fix this. If you're short in here, right, also equally as problematic.
Yeah.
Right. Like just get on the right side and stay on the right side. Well, how do you do that? That sounds easy. Well, that's what this is all about, right? That's why we use this methodology, so that you can get a good entry. And when I say a good entry, I mean a safe entry. Right? Before this signal flashed, there was a whole lot of decision making going on here that makes this signal look really clean in hindsight. But I can assure you that this little doji in here, it would have been flashing on and off. You wouldn't know if it's more consolidation. But eventually, when you see it flash and then you get that kind of divergence of the T line and the 5 EMA, that's how you manage, right, that trade. You get the nice signal. This is the insurance that you've paid to make sure that you're on the right side. And as long as price kind of follows the yellow brick road as such, you just can stay on the right side of the trade. And these candles that scare us all, right, the red candles that show up and freak us out or stop us out if we're being responsible, how do we deal with that? Well, if that red candle stopped you out and that's your next candle, are you confident that you're on the right side of the trade? Yeah, because the divergence is still apart, obviously still there and trending higher. So you can feel confident, right, that you're still on the right side of that trade. So if you do get stopped out, and this happens to us all the time, right? We try and be safe, we try and do the right thing, and then we get frustrated because we get stopped out all the time. When that happens, don't feel frustrated. Be thankful that you banked your profits. And hopefully you're in profit when that happens. But be reassured that you still have the ability to get back in the trade for however long it wants to move. We just take it one candle at a time. And you can enter that trade again with some certainty on where it may go, just by using the simple tools that we have. The volume profile, I strongly recommend to anyone. It's going to show you where that volume has, and more importantly, has not been, right? Those are the gaps that we often talk about, right? That's where the volume has not been, like here, right? This area is light volume. So if price can get into it, it should be able to shoot higher. Conversely, for whatever reason, you don't want to break this lower value range. And below here is also a gap to the downside. So the volume profile is a real nice tool. Here it is on the weekly. So this is looking kind of like that failed breakout. But if it does fall into this gap, you can understand why this level is in play. And I think if we look at a lot of the major charts like BNB, don't necessarily have the same amount of trading history, but you can see essentially the same sort of pattern appearing on its weekly as well. Right? Impulse moved down, went sideways, was not able to break trend, and now looking a little bit suspect. Right? Same with the daily. Now, is this still a bullish chart, Rico? Yeah, for sure, right? The way that we look at it, does it still diverge to the upside? Yes. So this candle could simply be a candle. It could close on the T line, but I would still consider it a bullish chart because the divergence would still be in play and it closed above the T line. So, we could be looking at it, forward in a manner that might not even be appropriate. This could be a continuation that comes, that we try and recover from. But right now, I don't like that kind of look with this, right? You've been overbought for a while, which is fine. That happens. The buyers are staying in the building. But I mean, it's starting to feel a little bit toppy. And just keep an eye on the 4 hour, right? I always like the 4 hour to show us, right? Does this look a little toppy? Yeah, right. It's just a matter of which one breaks down.
Yeah, what I like on the 4 hour, that it's still above the 50, it's still above the 200. So we're riding on that. But for me, and I know we got a sell signal on the 4 hour, but for me, like, it could be a case of this is that first bounce on the 200 after finally breaking above it, even on the 4 hour. Like, it's been a while since we've been above the 200, right? And it could be a case of that, that bounce right off of there. But if we broke underneath the 50, we broke underneath the 200 again, then obviously the point of control is back down to 87, 88K, and the lower value range is more like in the 86.5K zone for BTC. But, it's even on the 4 hour, yeah, we got a sell signal, but it is trading above the 200, trading above the 50. The markets are trying to hold on for dear life, and we'll just see if that's something that, they can actually do. That's something that can actually happen.
Yeah. This is ETH. I think we've shown this chart in here before. And, one of the things that, analysis is a process, right? It's not an at a glance kind of a thing. And one of the interesting things I noticed on ETH's chart was the point of control when I was looking at it on the daily at the time was about 2,500. And on the weekly, it was the same amount. So weekly is still in that same range, and on the daily, it's now about 29. That very rarely happens when they're that close together or even bang on. And what that tells you is that there's a strong concentration of trading that happened at that level. And when you look on this weekly chart, if you look to the right and you see this extension here, basically that's a volume shelf, right? This is a huge volume shelf, and the point of control is pegged right in the center of it. There's a ton of volume or liquidity, past price, whatever you want to call it to make it resonate along this level. So I still feel strongly that it comes back to find this range somewhere in here. Here's your 200 MA, right in that same zone. Right here. And you can see how prices respected it as a support and resistance level already. So it's going to be drawn to it. With the addition of the POC, I can't help but think that it doesn't find it.
Yeah, I mean, at that same level, it was interesting because ETH, we were kind of talking about it for a while as well. And it was just like, there was people calling the floor. And, this is the first time actually, like, because there's actually some decent price action, even after all this time. There was, for a while, people were like, this is the floor, everybody did. I was like, I don't know if this is the floor. I was like, you guys might as well spend time with your family and enjoy the holidays, because it looks like we're far off from this being the floor. But it was nice over these last couple of days to see us breaking over the 50 moving average. It's a moving average that I respect quite a bit because the market does. If it was the 57 moving average or the 53rd, I can care less. The 50 is the one that the market respects, so I'm paying attention to it. And, it's nice to see this, but even when I look at this, I'm like, okay, I can see that we're bumping into that lower value range, where it's having trouble to break past that 3,300, kind of get back into those normal ranges. And there's still a little bit of work to do, and it's that weekly chart that's going to show us really, if we get some buy signals and but if they don't, then, we don't want to get tricked. And that's why it's nice to be at this point, because it's, the market, it's nice to see the Telegram's happy again. It's nice to see, I get tired of hearing people complain about everything and stuff, right? It's like you hear from every direction. So it's nice to see the euphoria coming back. And I guess the biggest question is like, how long is that going to last? And this is why it's important, because you can catch the you can catch the euphoria for the short too, right? Anybody who caught a perfect short, you're in your own little euphoria mode, right? So that's why it's important that we do this. And I think like after that massive breakdown and in that chop zone that everybody was exhausted, it's just been nice to have this relief going on, you know, this trading above the 50, you know, and everybody feeling good. You're seeing all the projects, the telegrams going, and we'll just see as we're tracking price. Is this going to be something that's established? Is it going to continue? Or do we see 2,500 again, you know, which is a price that we called a long time ago on the chart? Yeah.
I think the opportunity, I think, for a lot of people is that, let's say that you've got a spot bag of Bitcoin or whatever asset that you have, and you're committed to holding it. Okay, fine. You can't tell me that when you look at this chart as just as an example, that you couldn't be trading something to profit from the downside to buy more of what you want to hold. Like, this just hanging on for dear life thing is kind of risky in my mind.
Yep.
Right. Because, you know, if the I don't want to say the rug because I hate that term, but I mean, if you're the last one without a chair when the music stops, what else have you done, right, to hedge yourself? Like, that's why I say you can be long and short the same asset at the same time. I do it. Right? I might have something that's a longer term hold, but I'll trade it in different methods to hedge it, or, you know, to monetize it in other ways. But I mean, like, you can hold something, but trade daily charts, right? There's, you know, nothing wrong with that. But I mean, this is what the opportunity is right now, is to understand the ebb and flow of price. Like, you know, nothing goes straight down. It's a process of, you know, down, a test of a level. Those levels come in various forms, but you can see that the rejection is definitive and the trend is clear, right? Another rejection. You know, this trend down through the middle of the chart was what we would call a runner. Did you know that you were going to be in that trade for the better part of, you know, a month? No. You know, you just took that short signal. You had no idea it was going to do that. But what happened on the chart? You broke the 20, you broke the 200, right? Could not break to the upside because your 200 is your resistance, and the thing capitulated. Right? That's the opportunity to monetize the chart. Understand what's in front of you. The resistance is clear. Downside targets are clear. But, you know, this, I've been saying this for a while. This is going to be a problem. This is 500 days of history. It's not the 5 EMA. It's 500 days of price history. Very rarely you just kiss it and blow through it like it's not there. It'll happen from time to time, but I mean, it's a significant level of resistance. And over weekly charts, it's no longer 500 days. You know, you're into years, decades worth of condensed price. So that matters for support and it matters for resistance. That's why on our oil charts, you know, we're talking about breaking 1,000-day moving average. That's because it's probably 40 some odd years of condensed price history. Get support from it, it's a pretty good thing. But fade it, not so much. Right? It's all relative. And everything is fractal. And I think what you're seeing on this chart, did we not see about 4 or 5 of these moves on the daily? Down, up, down, up, down, up. Well, here's just the first one on the weekly. And here you are on the monthly trying to hold it to 20. And to your point before, I never caught this. You did, actually, Rico. This was the first buy signal on the monthly back in April 23. And then you wouldn't have even seen a sell signal until December 25.
Yep.
Right? Like, you know, that's a pretty healthy run. And, you know, because we believe in fibs and fibs, fractals, and filters, let's just run fibs on the monthly just for, you know, what's and giggles. So Here's 50%, 71.2, and 618 is 58.2 for the 50s. So when we talk about breaking one level and finding the next on shorter time frames and being fascinated when it happens, it's even more fascinating when it happens on long-term charts, right? So
yeah, I've been watching it because I didn't have this thing the last bull run, last bear market. I was freaking caught up in all that stuff. It's like, when you want to be in this market, just take some time, man. Just pull back a little bit, because even with this price action that's super exciting right now, it reminds me of last time a little bit, where we almost got excited and we thought it was going to come back, and it was like, nah. If I would have had that freaking Blumhouse TA indicator, I would have been like, nah, the monthly chart, it's got a freaking sell signal, everybody. It's got to wait a minute, and this is why I can restrain myself a little bit. I can acknowledge on this daily chart we have some positive price action, but there's some things that I need to see happen on the weekly, on the monthly, for it to be all the way confirmed. And crypto changes quick. I mean, it changes freaking quick. And we have a different crypto market. We have ETFs. We have, banks now being able to chill, holding crypto 1% to 4% on their portfolio. So we didn't have that before. Now, is that going to be enough to give Bitcoin the floors, immediately that people are expecting? We don't know, right? We don't have all that necessary data to see. So there's going to be a couple times of going around the monopoly table that we go around and collect 200 as we learn, as these new floors are developed, because there is a lot more adoption around crypto than the last time, right? It's like when you compared the last wipeout of FTX, Celsius, Luna, Voyager, and then we went into the bear market, like we had a wipeout stronger than all that on October 10th. We're still holding relatively well, right? And I think it has to do with the overall outlook on crypto compared to the last one. The last one was like, no, crypto's naughty, shun on you for touching crypto, bad. Where now, even with October 10th, everybody's still talking overly positive on like blockchain technology, I guess, compared to last time.
Well, if you go back to that October 10th day, right, which is what you're seeing on the screen right now, and this is XRP, and this is the daily. So October 10th was a nightmare.
Yeah.
But on October 7th, you were told that was a sell signal or a short entry. So we literally had 3 days, 2 or 3 days of a head start. And if we were looking at the 4 hour, which most of my people that I'm with probably would be, they might catch it a day or so early sometimes. But we can't say we didn't know, because the market's always communicating with us, right? Again, this is a near real-time representation of what money is doing, not what people are saying. And, I remember on this evening kind of being in some spaces, and people were pretty concerned about what happened that day, and rightfully so. But there was this kind of, and the reason I bring this up is because it's the same thing I experienced when Bitcoin rolled the very first time it had its big run up, and then I think it was in the 60s or something like that, it fell. And it was the same kind of feeling, right? So there's this candle, and people are saying, well, it was a bad day, but look at the recovery. It's really not that bad. This is probably going to be over soon. Well, this is what I look at when I hear that conversation. This is what I see that very same night. Does that look like it's over to you? No. It looks to me like it's just starting. And then when you realize that you've broken a ton of support, you've got the 20, the 50, the 100-day moving average, and then, you broke pretty much everything else in one blink of an eye. But I mean, when you have this kind of support that's broken, that's a bad day anyways. Even though it recovered to roughly, 237-ish, look at the divergence between the T line and the 5 EMA. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I don't want to see people get hit by something they didn't see coming.
Right.
Right. And does it happen? Yeah, it happens to the best of us all the time. We live in a world that we don't control. But all we can do is increase the probabilities of that avoidance. And as long as I see that divergence and I see a close below the 200, I don't care about the wick down to $1.16. All right. I know that's the topic of everybody's conversation. I don't care. All I care about, where did it close? What's going on the chart in real time? Close below the T line, close below 200. This little doji here showed you nothing, no snapback, didn't try and challenge the 200 that it just broke, didn't try and challenge the T line or the 5 EMA, just a little doji. There's a test of the 5, there's a test of the T line. But the whole time, look, this divergence was in place. Now, those people that I spoke to this night were convinced that I was wrong. Was I wrong? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, hindsight when it comes to that, like, oh man, I didn't know. And you know what happens, and I just want to speak from experience. And then maybe somebody's listening and they're like, man, you know what, it sucks because it felt like I didn't know. You know why this happens sometimes when we're too zoomed in, honestly.
Yep.
Because on a shorter time frame, you're so tunnel vision that you didn't even know. But this is why, like, when these events happen, like October 10th and all these things happen, why it's nice to dial it back and start refining stuff. Because when I started dialing it back, even cleaning up my chart a little bit and then adding things again, like just kind of slowly without the horse blinders on, it was like, dude, on the daily chart, you've been had the signal that it was get out of Dodge time, and even right now, like with this positive price action, I'm not too surprised that I'm seeing this positive price action, because it's just the waiting is what kills everybody. And then once you're inside the ring with this thing, and now the bull is all over you, you're not caring what you're waving this red flag, you're trying to do this, you're not even noticing your surroundings at that point, right? But when you zoom out and you're out of the ring with the bull, you're like, I could have easily moved out the way right there. I could have easily got out the way.
This XRP weekly should be in the textbook. So here's your impulse down. And I want you to look at this weekly candle. What did it wick? Like, I mean, literally to the penny. 20-day moving average. Bang. And then completely pulled back. So this is an example of how you can have green candles. This is still a downtrend. You can have green candles that reach. You could have this green candle, with the top up here. It wouldn't change anything for me, really. Still a failure of that level. But the fact that it wicked it and pulled back and all this divergence stays in place just means to me that I'm not sold yet. Right? Is there trading that's going to take place in here? Of course, this is a weekly chart. But as far as the longer term weekly trend goes, it hasn't flipped yet. Right? It really has not flipped yet. And when you go back to the daily, everything's fractal, right? Look inside those longer term candles and you'll start to see things unfold. This failure here, right? What does that look like on the daily? It's this. That big wick on the weekly is essentially this. And it doesn't look like it's going to stick. It's bullish still. Yes, these could be 2 or 3 red candles in what turns out to be a down or continuation. That's fine, right? But the failure of this level, because it's the first touch, is not exactly suggesting bullishness, right? Again, and if it fails like the Bitcoin chart, it just comes back to the 20 or 50. Mm-hmm. Part of this is giving people the opportunity to understand where price might be going before it gets there, so that you're not surprised. 100%. Part of the problem is that we're, look at this wick. Were people surprised that it went down that low? Probably.
Oh yeah.
But, we tell people all the time, put buy orders in areas that you think are ridiculous, especially in crypto. And one day in the morning, you might wake up and it'll been hit. And this would be one of those examples, an extreme one, but still an example because of the volatility in the space. But the volatility is extreme, but the trends are pretty clear, right? The trend is pretty clear here. Big run down. This just looks like a few green candles. And if this turns out to be a failed breakout, what happens? You come back and take out the previous wave's low. if it does breaks out of the 50 and the 20, you're going to start looking for these structural levels to the upside and previous highs, right? And chip away at them. And then your chart ends up looking something like this, right? Where you just get these constant continuations from support levels. This is gold. So, you know, back in October, when there was a bit of a sell-off, did it really change the long-term trend? No. Right? Here's October. Just a blip on a greater scale. And this is how you can use, again, fractal analysis. We're looking at a weekly. If you were in a good trade on the daily and it started to feel a little sketchy or a little toppy, well, you want to take a look at the weekly. What does it tell you? Even though, let's just zoom out here for a second, all of this was somewhat consolidative, right? Like, didn't really move anywhere, mostly just sideways, although it was getting support the whole time. This, to me, is worth its weight in gold. To be able to understand the trend through all of these red candles is incredibly helpful, because the weekly was telling you that you were all right, right? The buyers, the fact that the divergence was still open, even through this consolidation, was telling me that the buyers were hanging around. They just went for coffee, and boom, the beat goes on. And where does that happen? Right at a major moving average. Good and bad things will happen at major moving averages. And this is why you have to be careful shorting at resistance, just like you have to be careful longing, or sorting into support and longing into resistance is equally as dangerous, right?
Yeah.
You could have taken a big short here and then bang, right? The beat goes on and you're on the wrong side. And again, if you're on the wrong side, just get on the right side as quickly as you can.
As fast as you can.
Yeah, don't mess around. And I'm my own worst enemy when I say that. You start to play that mental game with yourself, and then you just got to smack yourself in the face and go, nope.
Yeah,
just do it.
Yeah, 100%. So we're human, fam. Not many people are telling you how bad it is that I got, every once in a while you got to wake yourself up. Like, what the? Am I just gonna I'm just sipping on hopium now? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, exactly.
I got a chart that I want to show everybody, and
please.
I want to give a big shout out to everybody. And it's one that I watch quite often. You guys know I watch Solana on a regular basis because it's just I love the ebb and flow. And like, if you need something to ground you and something to give you that grounding, you need one that you're familiar with. You need your boot thing. You need the one that that has a beauty mark in a certain area that only right? That's how intimate you are with this thing. So I know where Solana's beauty mark is, believe it or not, which is kind of crazy to say like that. But this is a live stream, and 2 cups of coffee will have you talking like that, having a little bit of fun. We're going to talk about Solana right now, right? And I want to use Blunt's indicator just to show everybody why, even though I've been pumped up at the same time, and I like this price action because obviously I rock with the 50 a lot. It's like, hey, look at Solana. It's like, this is why I was telling everybody, like, after we got underneath this 50, and this choppy zone, I said, hey, to buy the gifts, use the XPX non-KYC gift cards, buy some people some gifts, enjoy the holidays, go make a freaking snow angel, go make a snowman, because there was still a lot of work to do. And a lot of people were trying to tell us, this is the floor, this is the floor, this is the floor. It wasn't until right here that I'm willing to kind of stretch my neck out a little bit, right? Because we're seeing some positive price action, but I'm still being cautious. I want to show you guys how the mentality is slowly switching over, and it can get retraced back to like, on the weekly we got rejected, right? But how on all these things, when people were putting these thumbnails on, telling you guys, the floor is in, the floor is in, the floor is in. I was telling you guys, I know it was getting a bit redundant. You guys are like, Rico, come on, we want you to lie to us. We want something to just tell us that it's like, I can't, because this is not just for you guys. Honestly, this is to keep myself in check, right? That's like, there ain't nothing shaking, nothing's going on, right? And this is where we're, like I said, we're kind of putting our neck on the line, but not all the way. And I'm gonna show you guys why, and why this Blunt House TA indicator is super bullish. I want you guys to bug this man, get his contact, have him in your back pocket, give him a follow over here at Blunt House TA, which I'm going to bring up right now as I'm going to bring up his indicator. You guys don't know that I'm doing a double shill right now at the same time, because if I don't do it for this man, he's so trying to give you guys the alpha, he won't do it. So I want you guys to come over here, give him a follow, okay? Give this man a follow. He's got 1,100 followers. What? You guys are getting wrecked by all these people lying to you. Get something a little bit, with some ground, some oomph behind it. And then like this, when the markets are starting to feel excited, and I'm excited as well, but we got to keep ourselves in check. And how do we do it? It's not like we're flooding ourselves or we're not this, that, or the other. It's just simply being real. That's all it is, fam. And I know the space that's hard for the space. Boy, that's hard. But this is why, even with the Solana price action, and I use my indicator to help me make it through a bear market with the parabolic SAR when I'm in full degen mode, right? In the middle of the night, and I'm sure Blunt has these sessions as well. It's like we got our buy signals, we broke past the 50, but I'm respecting that I'm still trading underneath the 200, which is the biggest bear bull indicator, right? So I'm happy that I'm above the 50. I'm happy that we got these buy indicators. I'm happy that I see this incentive to possibly fill this gap, get into this lower value range. But I'm also very conscious of the 100 and the biggest bear bull indicator, the 200. Why? Because we know that when we get above these over here, this is us above the 50, boom, and above the 200. Look at all this beautiful price action when we get above the 200. So that's why I'm still a little bit on the fence. And if you guys want to use the Blunt House TA, go to blunthouseta.com. Go also on TradingView and contact him, because it's expensive to have TradingView. They're not for the little guy no more. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. They're squeezing the little guy. But this Blunt House indicator, the reason I like it is that it not only gives you the buy and sell signals and this volume profile that to me is like a cheat code. It gives you the ability to turn on a lot of moving averages, so you don't have to play a guessing game of why this trade is positive. And you're like, whoa, what's the matter? What am I running into? Well, guess what? You're running into first the 100, then the next one's going to be the 200. Right. And that's how you're going to know, like, hey, I know why, this could potentially turn into a runner. Because if I got above the 100, I got above the 200. Last time we did that, we had all this positive price action. We're still not quite there. We're in the beginning stages of just breaking over the 50, what it looked like over here, that could be happening right now. That's not a guarantee. And that's why I like having Blunt up, because, we keep ourselves accountable. And it's not just of the pump it up type of thing, right? Like, we're being just honest with you guys. So like that's why I didn't even want to string you guys along during all this downturn. And I cleaned up the chart for everybody. I was like, hey fam, like, until we get above the 50, I don't even want to hear that the floor's in, we're not even going to do that. Right. And right here is like, no floor. And I saw all these people saying the floor's in. It was like, now you're seeing possibly where the floor's in. Right. And when you go to the weekly, this is again where this Blunt House indicator gives you a lot of information that you're like, okay, we're still trading underneath the 50. We definitely got some work to do. Let me turn on this indicator. Let me get some information, right? And you can see why we're at a crucial point on Solana and why we're still being responsible, right? This is the 200 holding on to it right here. This is all these times that it's holding on to the 200, the biggest bear bull indicator, right? We know that on the weekly chart. Now, this is why I'm also very cautious on the daily chart and just, is it going to turn around? Yeah, it's looking pretty good. But on this weekly chart, we still got some work to do, and we don't want to get caught that we lose this floor. And this is the second attempt, on this 200 moving average. And we don't want to get caught coming down to $77 or $79 on Solana, right? Now, on the weekly chart, if we print a buy signal and we see some positive price action, we start breaking past these moving averages, then it's most likely confirmed that, now Solana on this daily chart, most likely now it's above this 150 mark, is most likely already breaking past the 100, most likely flirting with the 200 moving average, trying to get above it so that it can chase the point of control and get towards that, 190, $200 Solana. So there are some positive things, right, that we haven't seen in quite a while. But it's nice to have these extra filters and just keep it real with yourself. Like, hey, there's still some possibility when we look at the weekly chart that things can go the other way, right? Now, we are seeing something we haven't seen with how positive this feels right here. And this is why we can highlight why we're feeling this. This is why, right? And then we'll see if that continues. If it doesn't, hey, we're indifferent to price. Guess what? The trend is your friend. We're not just going to say that. It turned around. Hey, we're turning around with it, right? So that's what's going on. What's up, Mark?
No, I was going to say the TradingView platform, like you kind of made a point about it. There was a time when, you could be new, and I think when you signed up, you could get like 5 or 7 indicators back in the day. And I think it's 1 or 2 now. So it's really hard to get started. And that for some people is a bit of an obstacle. And what I've done within this script is that I've given you the ability to run 9 moving averages, and there are different types, right? They can be EMAs, SMAs, volume weighted, a whole plethora of them. You can run 9 because I use them fractally. That's why there's so many. The volume profile is also built into it, and you can turn these things on and off as well. But it's also the system of how we trade. We use these averages as targets for price up and down. We use them obviously as support and resistance levels. So there's a bit of a methodology as well into how we use it. One of the things I struggled with, Rico, was getting it on TrendSpider, but I've finally solved that programming issue. So it'll be available there soon as well, but I've got a working version now. So what this is designed to do is to try and keep you out of as much trouble as possible, get you to focus on the chart and to block out the noise. Like I try and encourage a lot of people to trade the longer time frames and not the shorter things because they're nothing but neurotic. But trading the longer time frames using the 4-hour like we do in here today is a good example of that. And I think if you look at the 4-hour, the daily, and the weekly, you can gain an idea on those 3 different time frames, what the upside opportunities are, what the downside risk is, what's the probability based on what you see going on around you of price moving in those directions, like the volume profile, like you see on Rico's chart, right? That big gap is ultimately going to be opportunity. Right? You trade what's in front of you. And this is a really good example, like super clean buy signal. And at no time, you would take that buy signal and you would know that, okay, what's your next level of resistance? The 200, right? It's clear.
Clear as day.
Yeah. And you can look at that a couple different ways. You can interpret that and say, hey, I'm going to hit the 200 and I'm going to close the trade. Or you're going to say, I'm going to hit the 200 and take some off. Or you're going to say, geez, I hit the 200, broke it. The divergence is still intact. I'm going to add to this trade. I'm going to add to this trade. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? So this is the stuff that goes into monetizing the chart, right? So giving you the ability to read price is great. Helping you understand where the resistance and support levels are is great. But knowing that the trend is still intact makes all of that much more relevant and much more powerful.
Yeah, and for those who are wondering, this is that T line and that 5 EMA, and that's like, and you see like, do you take the profits? But when you see this divergence and, you move the candles, just get the noise out the way, you see that gap still valid. And you know what? We practice a 200 on here so much, man. We know that right when it gets above it, if it can hold above that and it's not coming back down and it's not flicking this thing on, that's why I even had cut them off. And I said, you add to it, right? Because we already know that when we get above this freaking 200, we have positive price action. Why? Not because me and Blunt saying so. Well, look, we go backwards. Look at how long it's been since we've been underneath this 200, just fighting for dear life. Since over here, this is underneath the 200, all underneath. So of course, you're not wrong for saying, hey, we're actually above this thing for the first time in a long time. We're not even breaking underneath it. Of course, you see this. You could have had not any of these indicators. You could have just been a 200 moving average person, but like, you know what? I'm only using the biggest bear bull indicator in the space. I don't care about Rico talking about the 50. I don't care about the Blunt House indicator. I'm just going to use the 200. And even right here at $130 Solana and this up back down, there was a trade right here above the 200 is valid all the way up to 143. Now, obviously, you're not going to call the ultimate top, but you could see how obviously after this prolonged just underneath this red line, right? It's just, you see us just, remove this and just add just a 200. Look how long we've been underneath just that 200. Ever since $218 Solana, we're just underneath this 200 moving average. And now we're seeing this green cloud come to life. And this is the question right now with Solana, and what we're going to be tracking kind of all together. You know, is this a case of, you know, hitting this 200 moving average and continuing? Because, you know, we got this 200 moving average, we got the 50 crossing the 200 moving average, which is usually pretty good when that happens, right? Depending on what side you're on. So that's pretty nice that's happening. And that's where we're seeing, like, is this enough to flick that weekly good? Is that enough to make these things keep going? But this is why we do this, fam, because, you know, a lot of times we'll have all these questions like, why are we having all this price action? Like, what's going on? It's like, well, something happened that hasn't happened in a while. You know, where we're trading above some serious moving averages, there's positive price action, and, you know, this can give you that idea. It's like, look how long it's been. All of this noise is like, ignore it. It doesn't even matter. Finally, right here above the 200, you got the trend just changed on you, and there's so much momentum now over 200 moving averages that it's like now it's just a continuation, right? And it's up to you. You know, are you adding on it? Are you taking off of it? It's your trade. None of this is financial advice, fam. So,
and what's interesting about the chart that you've got up there now, as soon as you add the script back on and you can see where you're trading in relationship to trend, the context is completely different.
Yeah. It is. It is. Okay. Yeah, no, it's pretty nice when you actually do it like that, and you kind of put the filters on back to back and you kind of look at it. And you know, that's the thing, is like, you're not trying to learn this overnight, fam. Like, I want you guys to almost like enjoy doing this, right? Yep. And as you add these things, you do get more context. And in the same things, like even when you remove them, it's like you notice how sometimes you're just almost paying attention to too much sometimes too, right? It's like everything goes both ways in this trading world, I swear. Yep. But Blunt, man, I know you got some. Let's come over here. We got some exchanges that you got over here, some links for everybody, some referral non-KYC exchanges. I'm gonna share these links for you down below.
Yeah, thanks. We try and give everybody in the group, like, there's people from all over the world, and what we found is that, you know, we had like one exchange and then half the people couldn't use it. So, you know, because of the geolocating. So all these three are pretty geolocation friendly, and they're really nice exchanges to trade on. BYDFI is probably one of the more slick, I think. You know, WEX is super reliable. Blowfin is great for futures. And KCEX is probably the lowest fee you're going to find out there. Like really low. Yeah. But they're all great exchanges, and you should have no problem getting on them, at least one of them, no matter where you are.
Very cool. Yeah. I posted some links for you guys down below, and I suggest you guys go through that, man, and then DM Blunt about this indicator, and you know, he's going to help you set it up. It's not like you're just going to get it and then you're like, oh, I don't know anything. What the heck? I got this indicator. No, he's going to help you set it up. You guys can go over it together, you know, kind of get an idea. And yeah, you know, just ask some questions, fam. That's really what it comes down to. And if you're trading crypto and you're like, okay, I love this indicator for crypto, that's awesome. But I don't want you to think for 1 second that this is not something that you can apply to your silver chart or your gold chart. You don't believe me? Well, I'm about to show you really quick how much you should be believing what's going on right now, because, you know, down here at $46 an ounce, you know, we got a buy signal. You know, so there are some things that we need to pay attention to. This, you know, if you're trading your little options, you're doing your puts, your pits, whatever it is that you guys are doing on your options, you know, look at this right here. This is, you know, you would have did a Nancy Pelosi. You would have done a Martha Stewart. You know, you would have got in at $48 with this indicator on a daily chart. You don't need to be freaking biting your nails off, you know, going against the trend, trying to push water uphill. You know, just wait for these things to come to you, you know, and if you get closed out, then you get closed out. But you know, you see some sections where you could have got closed out, but these are the ones that we're looking for. And you see, it would not be hard for me to understand what's going on right here. And let me turn on the other one really quick as well. You know, like I said, when you're cruising above these 200s, now they're pretty fanned out, you know, but what do you feel about silver? Do you think it's, you know, the trend is still intact? Obviously, I know that, right? But is there a point where, is there something special going on where like silver's just on a parabolic run where we look back 4 years later and we're like, we should have just bought it at $76 because it's at $2,200? Or is it, you know, just something special going on right now? Is this something that you think is going to continue? Is there going to be ever a correction? Because it just keeps pumping.
Yeah. I think you're going to see it continue. again, at the end of the day, it's all a chart, right? Like, let me, I'll show you my chart. There we go. 1 second here. Stop sharing. Uh-oh, did I not? There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right.
So this is your silver daily chart. And, this is, and gold looks very similar, right? But I think this is why it's really important to focus on the chart and not the noise that you hear around us. This chart is still incredibly bullish. This is the daily chart. And you can see what happens when you break through those gaps to the upside, and not much gets in your way. And even though we've had these odd days of red candles, the narrative is always, oh, silver's done, sell your silver, buy Bitcoin, or something to that effect, right? This chart has shown you no significant sign that it wants to break down. And this is also a real nice example of how to use fractals, right? So when we look at the chart, sometimes on the shorter time frames, like on the daily, for example, you might see more signals, right? But understand that as using fractal analysis and you look outward on the weekly, you'll see fewer signals. But what that allows you to do is that if you catch a signal on the daily and it runs nicely for you, don't you want to make sure that that if it was to continue on the weekly, that you'd be part of it, and so on and so on? Yeah, and that's kind of how we, through that 4-hour daily weekly look, you can really get an idea of, is the trend continuing, or maybe it's a little bit extended. Look at this weekly bench in here, right? You got 4 or 5 candles of sideways trading, but it never broke trend. Now, there's a lot of people that would sit here, over the course of the month and go, this is going nowhere. Look at the wicks to the, pushing price down. All legitimate. That's what you're looking at. However, if you're not monitoring trend or don't know how to do that, you could make mistakes, right? We want to help you avoid making mistakes. We want to get you on the right side of the trade at a safe time and keep you in it for as long as, it's equitable to be in it. And this weekly chart is still telling us, Rico, that there's more gas in the tank, right? Even if you were to get a pullback to the T line, is it still a bullish chart? Sure. On the weekly, right? It may not look nice on the daily, but on the weekly, it would still be bullish. And I still feel like it's got more gas.
Very nice.
It's been a ridiculous run, and I think you can talk about why this is happening. I think you find a lot of metals and the rare earth minerals are doing similar things, and probably within that is your answer.
Yeah,
if you can connect the dots.
Well, there's this silver mine that I know of that we might be reopening up if this price action continues. Because when I found this thing, I was actually a lot more mobile. But I could still get to it. That's for sure. I know exactly where it's at, and it's like silver was like $23 an ounce, right? It was like, and I mean, you could see the silver in the ore, right? Because it's just like, it's really dark, really, really dark, and you can see it in the ore and stuff. And it's like, I was like, man, when I went home, I was so happy. I was like, oh my God, I clearly found silver. I was nerding out on geology and stuff because I was in Arizona, and I was finding fool's gold for like 3 years until I finally found gold. And then I found this cool like silver mine. I was all excited about it because it was just like, you could just see it. It had so much, but it was like $23 an ounce. Not that exciting, but now $73 an ounce. So it's like, okay, if it gets to $2,000 an ounce, you guys might see me like, the old cartoon, and I might be streaming with a pickaxe over my shoulder, in the middle of the Arizona desert. Like, guys, we have switched profession. We are digging up ore now. We're mining again.
You're funny. This is this is the NASDAQ 100. This is the futures contract for NASDAQ. So I can show you the same on NQ directly, but I like using this because it's real time and it's futures and there's lots of price history, and usually you can see what you need to see on here first. So we've had lots of teases, right, with the indexes. And all that's on this chart is the script we're running, and then our moving averages 20, 50, 100, 200, 500, and 1,000. And this trend line I drew here. As soon as I can connect that second lower high. I do this all the time. It's the same thing I did on oil. You just don't know how true price will respect it until it happens. But I always like to connect that lower high when I can. And, we've been a little bit nervous throughout the holidays, and getting into the new year is kind of going, well, what's price doing? Like, is this a top? Are we in for a big pullback? Like, what does the year have in store for us? And I've posted this chart on exits out there, just kind of identifying that this could be a little bit of a top, right? And this is why listening to the chart is hard to do, but also very important. Now, this trend line, notice how price is respecting this level. This is a daily. This looked like it was going to be totally blown apart, but not so fast. I'm still thinking that this is potentially a toppy area. This is the 4-hour of the same chart, right? So, you can see what's going on here. Mm-hmm. This is looking rather extended. There's your draw for price to the downside, right? There's this big gap. I'm not married to the trend line, but I certainly like to use it for reference. And sometimes it's astonishing how accurate it is. But I mean,
what moving average is that it keeps bouncing off of? Is that the 200 or the 100?
Here?
Yeah. Yep.
That would be the 500 MA on the 4-hour chart.
Yeah, that's probably where it wants to go back down to.
Yeah. Well, and you can see, this is why I use these longer term averages, because they're applied fractally, right? So here's a 4-hour chart, and you can see how relevant these levels are. And you can see this is like in a first time breakout type deal here. So you've had support from the 500 twice before. Look, let's just do what everybody's thinking. Okay. It's just, so yeah, we're getting a little wedgy, right? I don't think this is the breakout that this would suggest it is. I actually think this is just going to come back into the zone. There's too much of a draw here for price to just, I think anyways, to go parabolic. I could be wrong, but I believe that this is very much in play to the downside. And when you look at the weekly, this was the first, a couple of weeks ago, like at the end of November, middle of November, that was the first touch of the 20 MA on the weekly NAS. Great bounce off support, right? Trade what's in front of you. There's your entry. You break through the 20 and the 50, and you're off to the races. That divergence up is telling you that you're okay, regardless of these red candles. Little pullback, bounce off the 20, didn't even produce a sell signal in here. It's just 3 weeks of taking a breath, boom, bounce off the 20, and here we are. Toppy level, look at you can see quite clearly. It's a sensitive area to get above there. But I don't know. I just think there's too much down here to want to attract price. And if it doesn't hold it, it puts all this in play. And you shouldn't be astonished for the price to come back to the 200 MA on a daily chart. Nor should you be freaked out the price came back to the 50-day on a weekly chart. Those are all completely normal. Same with the 200. The problem is when markets go parabolic and you have to retrace, those retracements feel like the sky's falling. And the problem for traders will be, how are you going to differentiate one of those moments where it feels like the sky falling from it actually is falling? That'll be the fun part.
that's the $1 million question.
Right? Yeah,
that's the one it comes down to. I want to give a shout out to the Crypto Princess. I see she's pulled up. She's also a YouTuber. And I want to give a big shout out to Saphir and the rest of the XPX community. You know, like the way that you guys react to all the posts. I see Lisa in here from the Captain B&B, the Thierry community. I see so many amazing communities. And I know this is not your guys' normal streams. I see the Can Do Unleashed community in here, the Can Do fam all together. I see the Sayolana community. You know, we do this so like that you guys can better navigate and help your communities, because I want you guys to understand, like, one thing about FUD that I think people get a really bad like understanding about is like, if FUD is not that somebody needs to be sitting on a mountain with a freaking magnifying glass and shining the sun through it to burn your project down, right? FUD is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. These are human emotions that you could be sitting by yourself and somehow they come upon you, right? And this is why we have to educate ourselves, so you know people don't get tricked out of their bags. People can maybe make some extra money on some of these sex exchanges and basically, you know, buy some more Ceylana or buy some more of their whatever favorite project it is that they're bullish on. But it's a lot better to have an understanding, have, you know, an idea what's going on, because a lot of that fear, uncertainty, doubt, all that stuff comes from reaching and not finding anything, not understanding it. And now, you know, you're just, it's a lot harder for you to make really good decisions when the time is needed, like right now, right? So I just want you guys to know that we're doing this for all projects. You know, when we're looking at these blue chips and we're looking at like ETH, you know, we're looking at Solana and these pumps are happening, they reflect how your Solana play is acting, right? And if you just let your, you know, your community get tricked nonstop over and over and keep getting duped, in the sense of like, you know, somebody saying the floor is in, and they keep getting wiped out, that's demoralizing them. They're not going to want to believe in anything else, right? Or is it better just to tell everybody, like, you know what, the charts are probably going to be a little bit shaky for a while, like I told everybody, and just wait till we saw some positive price action. So like that, we had all that saved up energy ready, and not for somebody to be like, this is the floor, that is the floor. It's like, bro, stop. I don't want to hear it no more, right? It's like, when is it for real? And you know, this is why we do this, so your community can not feel like, you know, they're being duped left and right. So I see you got another chart up for us. What is that you're looking at?
So this is Apple, for all you Apple aficionados in the world.
All right.
So this is a TrendSpider chart of Apple. It has the volume profile on it, and we're running our script. The platform itself is a little bit different from TradingView. The script is giving us the buy and sell signals and the opportunity to change the fields of our 5 and T line, but it also has a little engine in the background that you can alter, that takes it from a balanced approach, which is what we see here, the same as what you have on TradingView, to a more conservative or aggressive approach, and what it's doing in the background. So it's not just as simple as a cross, right? There's things going on in the background to filter out signals, and by switching from balanced to aggressive, for example, you will remove some of those filters, which will then give you a few more signals. If you switch it to conservative, it will do the opposite. It would give you, you can see it here, aggressive, balanced, conservative. Nice. If I hit aggressive here and then hit apply, it'll hit all these, it'll give you all these signals. And then what it's telling you to do, it's basically telling you to short those tops, kind of thing. I prefer the balanced because it just keeps, I like the ebb and flow of that better. The conservative one is I trade more frequently, so but it's greater on the longer time frames for sure. So there's a little bit of a difference in the two, but they're reading the things the same way. But what I want to show you is, here's Apple's sell signal. This came on the 10th of December. But it really started to break down days before. The sell signal on the 4-hour came on the 5th. This is why I like the 4-hour chart. So if you're an options trader, or any kind of trader for that matter, but there's a value and an edge, a benefit to getting clear signals on that slightly shorter time frame that can get you on and off the daily in a better spot. Because I'm a big believer in good entries, right? Because what do the good entries do? Well, they buy us they buy us some time and some elbow room, right? Yeah. So if you go back to the 5th, that's this candle here on the 4-hour that third red candle after the top is the one that gave you the signal on the 4-hour. And it shows up a couple days later on the daily. So if you were to be able to get into that candle, it buys us some elbow room in case there's a little bit of a retracement as the move unfolds. Worst case scenario, you know what? You're in for an all right trade. Better case scenario is that it catches on the daily and then starts to unwind like it is here. And then what do? We're simply applying the rules that we've talked about. Okay, so you can see, obviously you're trading above everything. So you get your sell signal and you're like, well, nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden something happens. The market told you that it was already happening. Don't worry about it, right? Just follow the chart and boom, there's your candle. Break the major moving average. What did you do? You broke one level, you found the next level. And then when you broke that level, you're basically finding this level, which is the 100 MA. What this is here is the anchored VWAP for volume. So on my TrendSpider charts, you will often see, I'm just going to take off a bunch of stuff. You're going to see that kind of purple line, and the other one is blue way down here. And they are anchored VWAPs. That's volume, that's price. Once I discovered the power of these anchored VWAPs on TrendSpider, that alone would keep me as a subscriber. I love these friggin' things. As much as I love all the other stuff that I do, these anchored VWAPs work so well. Right? So, you know, basically what happened is I knew, or you would know, that Apple wants to come back to this anchored VWAP. What's also on this profile is a VWAP as well as a point of control. And the VWAP is what? Volume weighted average price. That's what the VWAP's telling us. And the VWAP is way down here at, what is that? 226. So do you want to pay more than the VWAP? No. Right? Because you're paying a premium essentially. So it's nice to know where the VWAP is, because that eventually becomes a draw for price. And lo and behold, down here is the anchored VWAP for volume, which will also act as a draw for price. And where do these two things sit? At a volume shelf beneath this big gap. So if you break this upper volume range on the daily, it's going to get slippery. And if you look at it from a weekly perspective, what do you see? There's our weekly sell signal. You know, this just started to print yesterday as it started to let go. What's down here? Anchored VWAP for volume and price. Now, I don't have to have any other major moving averages on my chart because I'm comfortable enough to follow my system, right? I can look for, you know, support and resistance levels, structural levels, but I'm telling you, there's something magnetic about these things.
Yeah.
And like, I'd like to have the president of TrendSpider on my stream. I kind of have contact with him.
Send him an email.
Yeah, I've been talking to him about some other stuff. He's a really good guy. And
Nice.
I think I'm going to do that. Have him on if he'll join us.
Yeah, that'd be epic.
That'd be like, yeah, I love this platform, and now that I've been able to get my script to work, I love it that much more because I'm that much more comfortable with it. Right. So what's this candle doing on the weekly? It came back to the 20. So if you're trading this thing, you have to understand that if you're trading above the 20 and the 50 and the 200 and everything else, when you do come back to test, at a minimum, you're going to come back to the 20. Like, that's an easy short to the 20. If it breaks, where do you think it goes? It goes south. And lo and behold, it's not just these two anchored VWAPs that are twisting down here. There's the 50. They're all down here together. Right? And that's kind of, again, that draw for price. These are areas where buyers and sellers have shaken hands in the past. And if no money comes in to push, to break the trend, it'll look for where it's been before. And if it doesn't get the support it needs at that level, it looks to the next level. I know it sounds so bloody simple, but it's all the stuff in between that confuses us.
Yeah, no, you know what happens? It gets simple once you get hit enough times, right? It's like
Yeah.
I can see why we were raised the way that well, at least I was, because it's like when you look back, it's like, wow, that was so simple. Why did I make it that hard? And it's like, because we're human, right? We complicate things sometimes, and that's okay. But you know what? There's times like this where it's like, we get our footing, and it's nice because I'm feeling the groove back, right? It feels kind of good because sometimes you got to go through that stuff. You got to go through the market shakeouts. And unfortunately, October 10th was a little bit of an anomaly, the way that it played out and the way that it shook everybody out. But when you look at how it is now, it's like, well, and you actually had indicators before that happened, right? It's like, why didn't I pay attention? And that's where you address that stuff, right? Because even when I look back, now not all of them, but the ones that I was trading personally, there was signs that I should have, I could have avoided October 10th, right? And it's like sometimes you got to go through October 10th to be like, next time I get my indicator and I get my signal, I'm not gonna, because you never know which one's gonna be October 10th, right? And you working on the sell signal on the daily chart, and you're getting all that divergence. It's like, I was like, wow, I was so zoomed in on the lower time frames that I didn't even realize that for 3 days I've been trading on a sell signal for these 3 days that were really a sell signal and a downtrend already confirmed. But I'm getting small trades on the lower time frames, and next October 10th, happens 3 days later, and you're like,
yeah,
where did that come from? It's like, well, look at the daily chart. It's been active. It's been there.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter what we're looking at, be it stocks, be it crypto, be it commodities. It doesn't matter. Right. This is the daily chart for Tesla. Right. Well, on the 4 hour, your sell signal showed up the day before on the 26th or whatever that is. Yeah. And, there's your confirmation. But on the 4 hour, because I like the 4 to get onto the daily because I'm trying to sneak an entry on. So I got an early entry onto the daily. Here's your confirmation candle, and it starts to let go. But what's your target to the downside? Well, the 20, right? That's going to be your first level. And if you don't hold there, the 50. There's the anchored VWAP. Here's the upper value range. And it's just break one level, find the next. And this is one big gap down below. There's your anchored VWAP for price. And there's the 200 MA. And when you look at the weekly, you can see that, you've had support from the 20. These are just 3 big red candles in an uptrend at this point on the weekly chart. But if it doesn't hold, you can kind of see where this goes, right? That big gap that you saw on the daily is a little bit smaller on the weekly, but still significant.
Yeah.
Right? And then you've got all kinds of things that would be draws for price. And what keeps them away from this level? More money, right? That's what makes it go up.
Yeah, exactly. More money. The solution to everything, everybody, just more money. Blunt, we've been live for about an hour and 30 minutes. I think this has been a really good stream, just kind of, especially right now when the market had that just breakdown forever. Then it was just chopping to the right. And now we have all these new emotions because for a while, it was like, oh my God, it happened. And then it was like, all right, we get it, it happened. But what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And now we have a little bit of what's happening next. So I think this was a really great stream to kind of make an audit of these new emotions, right? Because the markets are kind of changing their direction, they look like, but what to be careful for when now these things are happening, right? Because downtrend was confirmed, chop was confirmed. It's like, is this excitement real, or is this just a little bit of we're gonna go up and then whack-a-mole and then we're coming back down, right? And I think this is why I'm really happy to have you on to these streams, and now the first one for 2026, and I love that we get to have you up on here, brother.
Well, I'm happy to do this. I love doing this. I love talking to you guys. And I think at the end of the day, what we want to be able to do is leave you with something that will help protect you from these crazy things that you see in the market. Whether it be that extreme volatility up or down, we want to be able to give you the ability when that happens to say, okay, I can see where this is going. Having that understanding takes a lot of anxiety out, that alone. Right.
100%.
Yeah.
I got something that I want to share with everybody really quick because, We've done something
Okay.
kind of fantastic over here at XPX, and getting a lot of attention. And I think it's good for the whole space. It's something that, is not just for XPX token holders. We're not gatekeeping this stuff. We want you guys to transact in the world. And I think one of the biggest messages from XPX is that we're open for business, whether you're individual or you're a project or a company, a business, whatever side that you want to be on, but you want to move crypto around. We're over here just willing to give you guys the tools to be able to do that. Right now, we just released one of our massive utilities on top of all the other ones that we already have. But I think this one, the fact that you can use it in about 10 minutes and have it onto your Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, Google Pay, it's extremely powerful. This is a 10K limit, 10K limit MasterCard that allows you guys to use this non-KYC. So long are the days and long gone are the days that were, you're waiting and maybe you send the documentation in. They're like, oh my God, you know what? We don't want it in this language. Can you get it? Because that was some of the issue, right? Some of the people getting the KYC cards, they're from different countries. They would have to go to the bank, get the letter in either English or Spanish, then come back, right? Because it might have been in Sweden or something. It might have been in a whole. But now in under 10 minutes, you guys can off-ramp your Solana, your BNB, your USDT, your Liberty World Financial, whatever it is that you're bullish on, and maybe you needed some spending power in the real world. I want you guys to come over here and give us a follow at XPX Token. We've been live going now on 19 months, which is wild to say because time just keeps flying by. But the gray hairs keep reminding me how fast this stuff happens. I want you guys to come over here. I'm going to share you guys this as well. Share this link right here. This is our daily chart, extremely healthy, fam, and a project that's been live, like I said, going on 19 months, providing off-ramp solutions, not just for our investors, but individuals outside of our circle, for businesses in here. I mean, some businesses here in Las Vegas, other businesses around the United States, and actually growing. That's what we're supposed to be doing. It's progress no matter what. The chart's going up, chart's going down, that's fine. But are you building in the space? Do you love the space enough to just keep pushing this idea forward? And that's what we've been doing. Something pretty cool, and then we'll wrap it up around here. Keep you guys wanting more. This was something else that I did the other day using XPX utility, because I mean, it's like that's what crypto's meant for. Like, it's meant to be used, fam. Like, experience your crypto. Come over here to Crypto Bill Pay. And I kind of just was practicing exactly what I'm preaching to you guys, right? Came over here to Crypto Bill Pay. I wanted to get a Steam account. I wanted to just see what the gamers were talking about. If the gamers were talking about crypto, if they were interested in crypto or not. So I came over here to crypto gift cards, non-KYC gift cards. And I came over here and I downloaded the game. It actually took extremely long to download the game. I got my card in less than 10 minutes and was able to purchase the game and do this with Solana, right? And be able to use my crypto to do something and tap into other communities. And, like I said, I want you guys to pay very close attention. This is a project that has continued to give you guys, whether it's non-KYC bill payments in 10 countries, non-KYC gift cards that allows you to interact with games, go straight to Steam, which is a very big platform, or get your KYC 100K limit MasterCard, get your 10K limit non-KYC MasterCard. It's utility stacked on top of utility. And it's a real testament of us really rocking with the space and really just handing it over. So if you're somebody who's winning in crypto, whether it's a meme coin millionaire and you're going to go purchase your Lamborghini, whether you're, an NFT aficionado and you're just knocking it out the park, and you want to pay some bills for somebody in another country, or you're knocking it out the park on your blue chips, your Cardanos, your XRPs or pump, and you want to off ramp a little bit and buy somebody a gift, XPX is giving you guys all the tools that you need to maybe even make somebody who's not a believer in crypto, right? And just show people that this stuff actually has use case. And that's what we're doing here, not only providing it for somebody who wants to pass KYC, but now I think the real big utility that got whipped out is this one right here, that non-KYC MasterCard 10K limit. Fam, use it. You definitely want to tap in. So I'm going to do another show. What's up?
That's cool.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
No, that's cool. That's very cool. Good for you, man.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Just working. I'm loving this space so much. And I'm going to do one more show also for Blunt. I want you guys to come over here, give him a follow at Blunt 420. I think it's super important to support these people in the space. It's somebody that's helped me out quite a bit. And, not just the technical analysis, it's the wisdom as well, fam. Like, there's no rush in this. It's not the overnight sensation type of thing. Like, refine this thing so you can define this thing. And Blunt has really been helping out this whole space, the whole community, really been able to do that. So come over here, give him a follow, support him, and come over here and bug him on the bottom of this page. You guys can send him a message, right, Blunt? That's all good?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
So Blunt, we're going to wrap it up right here. We're going to keep them wanting more. We're definitely going to have Blunt 420 up on this stage again. I think it's good to keep us in check. You know, we've had people that told us, you know, before we had these indicators, they're like, hey, the floor is in now. The floor is in now. This is the floor. It's like, bro, no, it's not. We're not even close to the floor being in. Stop playing around. And that's why we got to have these spaces. So like that, we can take advantage of these opportunities when they arise. And yeah, and when they're over, they're over. So Blunt, any last words you got for the community? That, I mean, they love you so much. When I tell everybody I'm about to have you on, you don't even know, my DMs light up and they're like, I'm gonna be there. Yeah, they love it.
I just appreciate, I appreciate the support. And you know, as you guys know, my Telegram group, and you can join it if you like. It's free. If you can't find a link to it, just reach out to me and you can jump in. But yeah, like, we're just a group of chart geeks that try and help each other and keep one another out of trouble. Sometimes we're successful and sometimes we're not, but we just want to try and pay it forward. That's how I got into this. I was fortunate enough to get some really good training. You know, I'm happy to try and share some of my learnings over time. So
we're super pleased that you are, and I'm glad you did all that hard work and put in all those years for us, and we're just here being able to just, you know, pick your brain apart. I'm like, oh my God, how would have we ever got all that information?
How much money did you lose to get here? Yeah.
That's the part nobody wants to say, right?
That's right.
Everybody has to pay their dues, that's for sure. It's like, I knew you already had paid your dues and you're on the winning side of things, and that's why I thought it was such a great idea. And honestly, you know, even if I didn't have the live stream, I would still be bugging you, probably trying to tap in with you, because it's just really amazing, man. So thank you so much.
I appreciate all you guys, and again, I'm glad to be here, and thanks for your support.
Man, let's keep supporting the real ones, man. Big shout out to Blunt for pulling up, but even a bigger shout out to the community that pulled up, the Delatoshis, the XPX in their suits and ties, the Sale Llama, the Thierry community, the Captain B community, all the communities that pulled up, the Can Do community. Without you guys, man, we just be up in here talking about up, down, and you know, to the right. But because of you guys, we get to keep ourselves in check. We continue to refine this thing. We don't have to listen to the noise of when they were saying this was the floor, this was the floor, this was because we weren't even buying none of that. We didn't buy. Why? Because we keep ourselves accountable together. And I think that phrase is used a lot, but a lot of times it's not actually used in the way with action. Is if we grind together, we'll shine together, right? This was a freaking grind. This downtrend is a freaking grind. And now we're seeing maybe a little bit of shine coming to light, or maybe, you know, the weekly is confirmed that it's still a downtrend, but together is how we do that, right? So thank you, Blunt, again, one more time. And thank you guys for all pulling up. I want you guys to like, comment, subscribe. Man, give this man a follow. Make sure the bell notification is lit. And if you guys can't do that, continue to come back. Experience the abundance of money with me. Until next time, you guys know what it is. Later.